Boiling oil seared her retina first, not a memory. A living, burning agony that blistered skin, melted flesh, and seared every nerve ending raw. Natalie Carter could feel it all over again, the scalding heat swallowing her face, the thick, suffocating stench of burnt flesh filling her nose. She could hear Tara's shrill, unhinged laughter. The vicious triumph in her sister-in-law's voice after splashing 200-degree cooking oil straight at her. Worst of all, she could hear her parents' cold, dismissive murmurs over her screams, "It's just a minor burn. No need to waste money on a specialist." That sentence was her death sentence. They let her rot in a rundown community hospital. Too greedy to afford proper treatment, too indifferent to care that their daughter was dying in agony. Day by day, sepsis gnawed at her body until she had nothing left. She died alone, in blinding pain, with no one by her side, and the moment she drew her last breath, her entire life's work was stolen, her savings, her apartment, her hard-earned career bonuses, everything was quietly transferred to her worthless brother Jason. The family she had spent 32 years feeding, funding, and saving discarded her without a second thought. They scattered her ashes on a random roadside overlook, no grave, no marker, no trace that she had ever existed. She sacrificed everything for them. Her youth, her salary, her freedom, her peace. She paid Jason's wedding fees, covered his luxury villa down payment, paid his monthly mortgage, and funded her parents' entire retirement. She was never a daughter to them. She was only a resource, a disposable tool built to sustain their precious son, and she died for it. "Natalie, wake up. We have to leave right now." The sharp, demanding shout sliced through the torture of her death nightmare. Yanking her violently back to consciousness, Natalie jolted upright in bed. Gasping for air, cold sweat soaking through her resort nightdress. Her hands flew to her face, trembling wildly. Half expecting to feel melted, blistered skin beneath her palms, but her skin was smooth, unbroken. Whole, bright, golden Santa Fe sunlight spilled over the floor-to-ceiling windows, soft and warm. The crisp desert breeze drifted through the cracked window, carrying the clean scent of pine and wild desert flowers. No hospital stench, no burning pain, no creeping despair of death. She was alive. Her eyes darted to the glowing phone on the nightstand, and her blood turned cold. A brand new Facebook post blared across the screen. Posted minutes ago by Tara.my in-laws abandoned their only grandson just for a selfish vacation. They ignore their grandchild, neglect our little family, and favor their ungrateful daughter. I can't endure this unfairness any longer. I'm filing for divorce. The exact day. The exact malicious trap. This was the moment her old life shattered. The moment her family manipulated public opinion, forced her to drop her long-awaited vacation, and dragged her back to the toxic family quagmire that eventually killed her. In her past life, she had caved instantly. Overwhelmed by guilt, terrified of her family's disapproval, desperate to fix a mess that was never hers. She had rushed home overnight, fought a pointless battle for her ungrateful family, and walked straight into Tara's fatal rage. But that weak, self-sacrificing girl was dead. Natalie stared at Tara's fabricated grievance, and for the first time in her life, she felt no guilt, no panic, no urge to fix everything. All she felt was icy, unshakable clarity. "Natalie, hurry up and pack." Her mother stood over the bed, brows furrowed, voice sharp with urgency and blame. "Tara's post is going viral. Relatives are commenting, people are judging our family. If we don't rush back and smooth this over, Jason's marriage will end. Do you want your brother to lose his family?" The familiar, suffocating moral kidnapping wrapped around her again, the same pressure she had surrendered to 1,000 times before. For once, she would have apologized for being selfish. Once, she would have thrown her luggage together and raced to save her brother's broken family. Once, she would have sacrificed her own joy for theirs without hesitation. Not today. Natalie lifted her head, her dark eyes cold and steady, no trace of the former meekness or fluster. "I'm not going back." Her mother froze on the spot, stunned speechless by her uncharacteristic defiance. After a beat of utter shock, her face flushed with unbridled anger. "What did you just say? Are you out of your mind? That's your brother. His family is falling apart. How can you lie here vacationing while his life collapses? Why is his life my responsibility?" Natalie's voice was quiet, yet firm enough to cut through her mother's hysteria. "I worked 12-hour days for an entire year to save up for this trip. I planned this vacation solely for you and Dad. I did nothing wrong. Tara and Jason's marriage problems are their own fault. Jason refuses to take accountability for his household. Tara chooses to stir up online drama instead of solving issues privately. I did not create this mess. I will not clean it up." Her mother's hands trembled with rage, her voice rising sharply. "You're so cold-blooded. What happened to family loyalty? Eldest daughters sacrifice for their brothers. That's how families work." The old, poisonous mantra she had heard since childhood finally snapped something loose in Natalie's chest. She stared at her mother's furious, unyielding face and saw the brutal truth she had spent decades denying. Her parents were not neutral bystanders. They were not helpless victims caught between their children. They were active, willing participants in her destruction. They chose their son over their daughter. They chose to drain her dry to prop up Jason's lazy, entitled life. They chose to ignore her pain, overlook her efforts, and sacrifice her happiness for his comfort. They never loved her. They only loved what she could give them. In her past life, she paid for their selfish choice with her life. This life, she would pay nothing. Natalie reached for her phone, her fingers steady and unhesitant. She opened the flight booking app without a single flicker of guilt. I'm staying here to finish the vacation I earned, she said flatly. If you're so desperate to go back and save Jason's family, I'll book your return tickets now. You and Dad can leave. I'm not coming. Her mother stared at her in complete disbelief, her anger melting into raw panic as she realized her daughter was not bluffing. Before she could argue, beg, or issue more threats, Natalie booked the earliest possible return flight for her parents only, confirming their departure in 3 short hours. No hesitation. No compromise. No self-blame. The lifelong era of Natalie Carter bleeding herself dry for her toxic family was officially over. The moment the flight confirmation message popped up on the screen, Mrs. Carter's mask of gentle motherhood shattered completely. She stepped back a pace, staring at Natalie as if she were a total stranger, her eyes blazing with shock and resentment. For 32 years, her daughter had never once dared to defy her. Natalie had always been the docile, yielding daughter who apologized first, sacrificed first, and endured silently. This sudden, ruthless defiance was like a slap across her face. Humiliating and infuriating. You are really determined to abandon your family for a trivial vacation? Mrs. Carter's voice trembled with fury, sharp and biting in the quiet resort room. Natalie leaned lazily against the headboard, her posture relaxed but her eyes cold and guarded. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just no longer sacrificing my life to clean up other people's messes. This is your family. Mrs. Carter almost screamed, unable to accept her change. Jason is your only brother. Blood is thicker than water. How can you be so heartless? Blood never stopped any of you from hurting me. Natalie's tone was flat, without a single ripple of emotion. The words silenced Mrs. Carter instantly. She stared at Natalie in blank astonishment, seemingly unable to comprehend how her always obedient daughter could speak such cold, rebellious words. Before she could organize more moral accusations, the phone in her hand vibrated violently. The screen lit up with Jason's incoming call, followed by a flood of frantic messages from relatives in the family group chat. Tara's public complaint post had already spread among distant relatives and hometown acquaintances. Comments filled with gossip and accusation piled up rapidly, all pointing fingers at the Carter family's selfishness and indifference. Panic finally overwhelmed Mrs. Carter. She answered the call in a hurry, and Jason's hoarse, furious roar burst through the speaker without any preamble. Mom, what the hell is going on with Tara's post? Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about us. My boss even saw it. Are you and Dad really staying out of town and leaving my family hanging? Mrs. Carter's eyes instantly turned red with anxiety, her tone softening completely as she soothed her precious son. It's not your fault, honey. It's Natalie. Your sister is being cruel and selfish. She refuses to come back to help us resolve this mess. She insists on staying in Santa Fe for her vacation. She did not hesitate for a second to shift all the blame onto Natalie, completely ignoring who had planned the vacation, who had paid for every penny, and who had been wrongfully forced to sacrifice again. Natalie watched her mother's groveling, partial manner calmly, and the last faint trace of nostalgia for maternal affection in her heart vanished completely. This was her family. A family that never saw her efforts, never cherished her dedication, and only remembered her obligations. On the other end of the phone, Jason's anger grew more rampant after hearing his mother's words. Unbelievable. She has such a good life, enjoying luxury vacations outside, while I suffer at home with quarrels and gossip. Mom, tell her to come back immediately. She has to apologize to Tara publicly and suppress these comments. His tone was natural and arrogant, as if Natalie's time, mood, and rights were trivial things that could be trampled on at will. Natalie could not help but let out a low, mocking laugh. The sound drifted into the phone, and Jason fell silent for a second, then exploded with greater rage. Is that funny? Natalie, are you still laughing? Do you know how much trouble you've caused me? If my marriage breaks down, if I lose my reputation, it's all your fault. Your reputation and your marriage are your own responsibilities. Natalie picked up her phone, her fingers sliding steadily across the screen, her voice cold and unyielding. I didn't force you to marry Tara. I didn't force you to be irresponsible in your marriage. I didn't ask you to rely on your sister's sacrifices to live a comfortable life. You've relied on me for everything since childhood. School fees, living expenses, wedding costs, house down payment, mortgage. You've never lifted a finger for me. Yet you keep asking me to sacrifice for you endlessly. Now you're blaming me for your own failure? Her sharp, straightforward words stunned Jason into dumbfounded silence. He had long been accustomed to Natalie's unconditional giving. He had never expected his always submissive sister to refute him so thoroughly and expose his incompetent greed in front of his mother. After a brief stupor, Jason flew into a rage, his voice vicious and threatening. You're heartless. Fine. If you refuse to help me resolve this, don't blame me for being ruthless. From today on, you don't want to have any peaceful days in this family. He hung up the call with a bang. Mrs. Carter's face turned ashen. She immediately turned to Natalie, her eyes filled with accusation and disappointment, as if Natalie had committed an unforgivable sin. Look at what you've done. You've made your brother so angry. Can't you just give in a little bit for the family's sake? Is a vacation more important than your brother's lifelong happiness? Yes. Natalie answered without hesitation. This vacation is the only thing I've fought for myself in 32 years. It's far more important than his messy, self-inflicted marriage. Mrs. Carter was completely shocked by her decisive answer. She stared at Natalie, her lips trembling, unable to believe that her daughter had completely changed. Before she could continue her preaching and moral kidnapping, Natalie's phone screen lit up again. This time, it was a message from Jason, forwarded by Mrs. Carter with a trembling hand. A blatant and greedy request that pierced all pretense of family affection. Since she's so selfish and refuses to help me fix the mess, let her make up for it another way. The school district department in her name is idle anyway. Let her transfer it to Owen's name immediately. It's for my son's future schooling. As his aunt, she owes him this much. The words were arrogant, natural, and devoid of any shame. Natalie stared at the line of words, and the last trace of warmth in her heart faded completely. This was their true face, all the moral kidnapping, all the accusations of unfiliality, all the talk of family loyalty, were just excuses. What they really wanted was to keep draining her, to take possession of her hard-earned assets, to let her brother and nephew live a superior life relying on her efforts. In her past life, she had compromised again and again, letting them hollow her out until she had nothing left. Until she died in despair. This life, she would never give them a single chance. Mrs. Carter held the phone tightly, her eyes shining with eager anticipation, fully convinced that Natalie would soften and compromise. In her logic, it was only natural for an aunt to sacrifice her own assets for her nephew's future. Natalie had always been generous and obedient, giving in to every family demand without a single word of complaint. A school district department, in her opinion, was a small price to pay for family harmony. Look, Owen needs a good school to have a bright future. That apartment is just sitting empty for you. Why not transfer it to him? It's not like you have a child to go to school right now. Her tone was casual, as if she was merely asking Natalie to hand over a trivial item, not a hard-earned property that had cost Natalie years of blood, sweat, and overtime work. Natalie raised her eyebrows slightly, the cold smile on her lips never fading. Empty? She repeated the word softly, her voice icy and sharp. This apartment was bought with my full bonus after 3 years of non-stop overtime, night shifts, and working weekends. I skipped meals, sacrificed my rest, and saved every dollar cautiously. How dare you call it empty and worthless? Mrs. Carter's expression stiffened, flustered by her retort but still refusing to back down. That's all in the past. You're stable now, you have a good job, you can earn another one. But Owen's education can't wait. As a family, we have to prioritize the younger generation's future. Prioritize? Natalie let out a low, mocking chuckle. You mean prioritize Jason's son by draining me dry again and again? Mom, tell me honestly. Have you ever thought about my future when you asked me to hand over my house, my savings, and my resources time after time? Mrs. Carter was caught off guard by her sharp question. She avoided Natalie's gaze, her words faltering and stiff. You're a girl. You'll get married sooner or later and leave this family. The house is useless to you anyway. But Owen is our family's hope, the only grandson of the Carter family, so I deserve nothing, and he deserves everything. Natalie cut her off abruptly, her tone no longer gentle, filled with unshakable resolution. This apartment is mine. Under my name, paid by my money, earned by my hard work. No one has the right to take it away, not you, not Jason, not anyone in this family. I will never transfer it to Owen. Not today, not tomorrow, never. The straightforward refusal shattered Mrs. Carter's last hope. Her face instantly turned livid, and she broke into hysterical accusations instantly. You're so cold-blooded and ungrateful. We raised you for 32 years, and this is how you repay us? You refuse to help your own nephew, you're selfish and ruthless. How will others talk about you in the future? Let them talk. Natalie shrugged indifferently, her eyes calm and fearless. I'd rather be labeled selfish than be drained to death by a pack of greedy relatives. In the past, I cared about others' opinions, cared about the so-called family reputation. So I compromised, sacrificed, and tolerated. But look what I got in return? A miserable death, a life ruined by my own family. I've woken up. From today on, my life is mine alone. I will not sacrifice anything for anyone who only knows how to take and never gives back. Mrs. Carter was stunned by her fearless attitude. She had never seen such a decisive and unyielding side of Natalie. The docile daughter she had controlled for decades seemed to have completely disappeared overnight, replaced by a stranger who was cold, sober, and impossible to manipulate. Before she could continue her moral preaching, Natalie's phone vibrated again. This time, it was a continuous stream of voice messages from Jason, each one more vicious and threatening than the last. Natalie, don't force me. If you don't hand over the apartment, I'll go to your company and make a scene. I'll tell all your colleagues how unfilial and selfish you are. I'll post everything online. I'll let everyone know you're a heartless daughter who abandons her family. I'll ruin your reputation completely. You think you can live a peaceful life by hiding out on vacation? Wait and see. I'll make you regret every single word you said today. The threats were blatant and crazy, full of the arrogance of someone who had long relied on moral kidnapping to get what he wanted. In her past life, Natalie would have panicked instantly. She would have feared public opinion, feared ruined reputation, feared being criticized by others, and eventually compromised obediently. But now, after experiencing a cruel death, these empty threats were nothing but ridiculous farce to her. Natalie listened to the voice messages calmly, then raised her eyes to meet Mrs. Carter's anxious and threatening gaze. Let him come. Her tone was flat, yet powerful enough to overwhelm all the noise. Let him go to my company. Let him post online. Let him make as much trouble as he wants. I have never owed this family anything. All the sacrifices I made in the past are enough to repay your so-called upbringing. From now on, every word he spreads, every trouble he makes, is evidence of the Carter family's greed and shamelessness. I have records of every penny I've spent on this family over the years. Every transfer, every payment, every receipt is well preserved. If he wants to fight a public opinion war with me, I'll accompany him to the end. Mrs. Carter's face turned pale in an instant. She never expected that Natalie would not only refuse to compromise but also dare to confront Jason head-on and even prepare evidence. To fight back. Are you crazy? Do you want to tear the family apart completely? She trembled, her voice filled with panic and disbelief. The family was torn apart the moment you chose to sacrifice me to protect Jason. Natalie stood up slowly, her tall and straight posture no longer humble or yielding. You never treat me as a family member. You only treat me as a tool for Jason's life. Now that the tool is awake and refuses to be exploited, you think I'm the one who tore the family apart. It's too late for remorse. From the moment I opened my eyes and was reborn, the old Natalie who sacrificed endlessly for this family is dead. She picked up her luggage casually, her movements relaxed and free. Without a single trace of burden. You can take the return flight alone with Dad. I will finish my vacation peacefully here. When I go back, I will sort out all the accounts over the years. From now on, I will cut off all unnecessary connections with this family. Mrs. Carter was completely stunned on the spot, her mind blank, unable to accept this earth-shaking change in her daughter. The 3-hour waiting period before their departure passed in stifling silence. Mrs. Carter did not speak again. She simply sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at Natalie with a mixture of grief, anger, and incomprehension. She kept waiting, foolishly believing that Natalie would soften her heart, take back her words, and obediently accompany them back home to fix the mess. But Natalie did not budge. She spent the entire morning sitting on the balcony, bathing in the warm desert sunlight, sipping fresh coffee, and scrolling leisurely through her social media. She looked peaceful, relaxed, and utterly unaffected by the family storm swirling around her. This indifferent attitude drove Mrs. Carter even crazier. Right before boarding time, Mr. Carter rushed back to the hotel room after finishing his temporary local errand. The moment he stepped through the door, he was bombarded with frantic voice calls and messages from hometown relatives. His face darkened instantly. What on earth have you done, Natalie? His voice was deep and stern, carrying the unquestionable authority of a patriarch. The whole family group is blowing up. Jason and Tara's posts are going viral locally. Everyone is saying you're an unfilial, cold-hearted daughter who abandons her aging parents and selfishly ignores her nephew's future for a trivial vacation. Natalie turned her head slowly, her expression calm and unflustered. I haven't done anything. I just refuse to let them rob my house. Rob? Mr. Carter frowned fiercely, slamming his palm on the table. It's your nephew's schooling. It's family support. How can you twist kindness into robbery? Your brother's family is on the verge of collapse, yet you stay here enjoying leisure and pleasure without a single shred of guilt. Have you lost all your sense of morality? The familiar patriarchal preaching washed over Natalie, no longer stinging or saddening her, only leaving her with icy weariness. In her past life, She had feared her father's anger, craved his recognition, and tried her whole life to satisfy his biased standards of filial piety. Now she simply saw a stubborn, biased old man who only had one child in his heart, his precious son Jason. Dad, you've never asked me why I refuse to go back. You've never asked how much I've sacrificed for this family. You only know to blame me for not catering to Jason's needs. Natalie stood up, her tone steady and clear. For decades, I've paid every bill, covered every loss, and filled every gap in this family. When have Jason and Tara ever sacrificed a single thing for me? Mr. Carter was momentarily stunned by her sharp questioning, then grew even angrier. He's your elder brother. It's only natural for the younger sister to make concessions. You're unmarried with no burdens. What do you need an extra school district house for? Letting your nephew use it is a matter of family inheritance, not robbery. My hard work is not family inheritance. Natalie's eyes turned colder. I earned that house with my blood and sweat. It belongs only to me. No one has the right to take it for free. If you two insist on siding with Jason and forcing me to compromise, then there is no need for us to talk further. Defeated by her unyielding attitude, Mr. Carter's face turned livid with rage. He had never expected his usually obedient daughter to dare to talk back to him so openly. Before he could erupt in further anger, Mrs. Carter let out a panicked scream. It's over. It's completely over. Tara just posted a long narrative post. She's exposed so-called truths about you. Natalie picked up her phone and opened the post casually. Tara's long post was filled with fabricated grievances and deliberate distortions. She painted herself as a wronged, tolerant daughter-in-law, and Natalie as a selfish, vicious schemer. She claimed that Natalie had always been jealous of her brother's stable family, deliberately made things difficult for them, refused to help her poor nephew, and even forced her parents into a dilemma with her willfulness. To make the slander more convincing, Tara even attached several carefully cropped chat screenshots, cutting off all her own greedy requests and vicious words, leaving only Natalie's cold refusal. The post quickly gained massive attention. Countless netizens who knew nothing about the truth flooded the comment section, abusing Natalie for being unfilial, ruthless, and extremely selfish. Some radical netizens even took the initiative to dig out Natalie's workplace information, vowing to report her to her company and get her fired for poor personal morality. Mr. And Mrs. Carter's faces turned ashen with panic. Look at what you've caused. Mrs. Carter cried anxiously. Hurry up and apologize online. Publicly admit your mistake and promise to give the house to Owen. Otherwise, your reputation will be completely ruined, and your job will be in danger. This was their usual tactic, using reputation and career to force her to submit. In her past life, Natalie had been terrified by this exact situation. She had knelt down to admit fault, compromised repeatedly, and handed over all her assets in exchange for temporary peace. But this time, Natalie only smiled faintly, without a trace of panic. Apologize? Why should I apologize? She tapped her phone screen quickly, opening her hidden cloud album that had been archived for years. Inside were complete records, all the full chat records that Tara had carefully cropped. Every year's huge transfer records from Natalie to her family. Every receipt of Jason's wedding expenses, mortgage payments, and daily consumption bills. And even audio recordings of her parents' long-term moral kidnapping and Jason's repeated threats over the years. She had kept these records out of cautious habit, never expecting to use them against her own family. But now, they were her most powerful weapons to fight back. They want a public opinion war? I'll give them a real one. Natalie's fingers flew across the screen. She edited a long post calmly, attaching all the complete, unmodified evidence. Restoring the whole truth bit by bit, she exposed Jason's long-term idleness and dependence on his sister's subsidies, Tara's habitual rumor-mongering and moral kidnapping, and her parents' long-standing preference for sons and endless exploitation of their daughter. She listed every large sum of money she had paid for the family over the years, clear and detailed, leaving no room for refutation. Finally, she typed a line of cold, powerful words at the end of the post. I have spent my youth, savings, and health to repay my so-called family. From today on, I draw a clear line with the Carter family. All slander and threats from them will be countered with legal means. I will no longer compromise for anyone. After posting, she directly turned on the comment permission and waited quietly for the public opinion to reverse. Mr. And Mrs. Carter stared at her operation in complete shock, their minds blank with fear. You're crazy. You're completely crazy. Mrs. Carter trembled violently. You're publicly tearing your family apart. You'll be nailed to the pillar of unfilial shame forever. Natalie locked her phone screen, her eyes clear and firm. The one who tore the family apart is not me. It's you who have been draining me for decades, Jason who is greedy and insatiable, and Tara who spreads rumors and slanders. I'm just waking up and saving myself. Silence hung thick in the hotel room. Mr. And Mrs. Carter stood frozen in place, their eyes fixed rigidly on Natalie's unlocked phone screen. waiting for the so-called public disaster they believed was imminent. They were still convinced that Natalie's reckless move would destroy her completely, that the entire internet would condemn her unfilial behavior and crush her future into dust, but less than 10 minutes passed, and the first wave of comment explosions swept through the platform. The netizens who had rushed in to abuse Natalie fell silent one after another. Tara's carefully edited, tearful long post had looked touching and credible on its own. However, when compared side by side with Natalie's complete, untrimmed chat records, full transfer bills, years of payment receipts, and threatening audio transcripts, every word of her grievance turned into a blatant, ridiculous lie. The cropped screenshots that Tara had used to frame Natalie were completely exposed. The missing upper and lower dialogues clearly showed that it was Tara who had repeatedly made insatiable demands, who had aggressively pressured Natalie to hand over her house and savings for Jason and Owen's sake, and who had threatened to ruin Natalie's reputation if she refused to obey. The huge stack of transfer records was even more shocking. Year after year, month after month, countless large and small remittances flowed from Natalie's account to the Carter family, to Jason, and to Tara. Wedding down payments, villa mortgage installments, daily living allowances, children's tuition subsidies, every expense of Jason's family had long been shouldered by Natalie alone. The cold numbers were far more persuasive than any fabricated grievance. The comment section flipped completely in an instant. I take back every bad word I just said. This is not unfilial at all. This is a woman who has been drained dry by her entire family for 30 years. Cropped screenshots to smear people. Full set of lies to whitewash herself. This sister-in-law is terrifyingly vicious. The younger sister works overtime non-stop to earn money to support the whole family, while the elder brother lies flat and enjoys everything. The parents even help the son rob the daughter's property. This is not a family, this is a vampire group. She refused to hand over her hard-earned house and is called selfish? If it were me, I would have cut off relations with them long ago. Public opinion reversed. Overwhelmingly, the previous abusive comments were quickly drowned out by endless apologies and condemnations toward the Carter family. Countless netizens were furious at the hidden truth, shocked by how a family could jointly squeeze and destroy their own daughter for decades. Some people even began to sort out the timeline of long-term exploitation, reposting Natalie's evidence on various local forums, making the Carter family scandal spread wider and more uncontrollable by the second. Mrs. Carter's face turned from pale gray to deathly white. She staggered back 2 steps, her hands trembling uncontrollably, her eyes filled with utter terror and disbelief. No, this can't be happening, she muttered in a hoarse, trembling voice. They should scold you. They should condemn you. Why are they targeting us? Mr. Carter's tall, rigid figure also stiffened completely. The patriarchal arrogance on his face vanished without a trace, replaced by flustered panic and crumbling dignity. They had never imagined that the obedient daughter they had manipulated for decades would hold such terrifying decisive evidence. They had never expected that their perfect family facade, which they had maintained in front of relatives and neighbors for a lifetime, would be completely shattered in such a humiliating way overnight. Before they could recover from the shock, their phones began to buzz frantically. Relatives, old neighbors, distant acquaintances, all of them rushed to send messages and make calls, questioning the truth of the online scandal, mocking their partiality, and criticizing their cruel exploitation of their daughter. The family group chat, which had previously united to condemn Natalie, was now dead silent. No one dared to speak a word. At the same time, Jason's frantic call popped up on the screen again. Mrs. Carter answered it in a daze, and Jason's hoarse, panicked roar burst out instantly, without the slightest arrogance and threat from before. Mom, what the hell is going on online? All the comments are scolding me and Tara. My colleagues saw it. My leader saw it. Everyone knows I've been relying on my sister's money to live. My reputation is completely ruined. Tara's crying and screaming noises came from the background, sharp and hysterical. Natalie is crazy. She's destroying us completely. Hurry up and let her delete the post. Make her apologize immediately and clarify everything for us. Listening to their chaotic, desperate shouts, Natalie let out a faint, cold laugh. She leaned against the balcony railing, bathed in bright sunlight, her eyes calm and cold without a single ripple of sympathy. Delete the post? She spoke slowly, her voice clear enough to be heard by everyone on the phone. It's too late. When you and Tara fabricated lies to ruin my reputation, when you tried to force me out of my job and rob my property, you never thought about leaving me a way out. Now that your own reputation is destroyed, you come begging for mercy? Jason's voice turned ferocious and desperate. Natalie, don't be ruthless. We are your family. If you don't delete the post, you'll what? Natalie cut him off indifferently. Come to my company to make trouble? Sue me? Continue to slander me? You can try. Every word you say now is new evidence of your harassment and threat. I have already saved all the records. If you want to continue tearing your face apart, I will accompany you to the end and solve this thoroughly through legal procedures." Jason was choked speechless by her cold toughness. All his previous threats were completely powerless in the face of her sufficient evidence and decisive attitude. On the side, Mrs. Carter finally broke down emotionally. She rushed toward Natalie with red eyes, her voice choked and begging, completely abandoning her previous arrogance and accusation. "Natalie, my good daughter. Please delete it quickly. We know we were wrong. Your brother's reputation is ruined, and our family's face is gone. Please have mercy on us? Don't be so cruel." Natalie looked at her tearful and humble appearance, and her heart remained completely calm. In her past life, she had longed for this moment of parental apology. She had dreamed countless times that her parents could recognize their bias, could treat her fairly, could give her a little warmth and tenderness, but now, this belated apology was not for her. It was only for their ruined reputation, for their precious son's broken future, for the lost face of the Carter family. It was never for her grievances, never for her decades of sacrifice, never for her miserable death. "I won't delete it." Natalie's tone was firm and unshakable. "Every truth exposed online is what you have done to me. Since you dared to frame me publicly, you must bear the public consequences. From today on, you live with the reputation you have created for yourselves." The sunset over the Santa Fe desert dyed the sky a warm orange. But the atmosphere inside the hotel room remained icy and suffocating. Mr. Carter watched his wife collapse into helpless tears, his last trace of paternal tenderness completely swallowed by rage and humiliation. For a lifetime, he had stood tall as the family authority, controlling every member's life with his biased sense of justice. He had always believed that daughters were born to sacrifice, and sons were born to inherit. Today, Natalie's rebellion had shattered his dignity, ruined his family's reputation, and destroyed Jason's stable life. In his twisted mind, all of this was unforgivable. "You leave us no way to live." Mr. Carter's voice was low, hoarse, and terrifyingly calm, like the calm before a storm. "Since you are determined to sever family ties and force your own family into despair, don't blame us for being ruthless." Natalie raised her eyes, no longer surprised by his blatant bias. After 2 lifetimes of insight, she could see through his selfishness at a glance. "What do you plan to do?" she asked indifferently, already mentally prepared for their final madness. "We will fly back tonight." Mr. Carter straightened his hunched back, his eyes filled with ferocious stubbornness. "Tomorrow morning, your mother and I will go straight to your company. We will explain everything to your leader and your HR department. We will tell them how unfilial, cold-blooded, and morally corrupt you are. If your unit refuses to fire you, we will stay there every day and make a scene until your reputation and career are completely finished." Mrs. Carter wiped her tears and quickly echoed, her eyes red and vicious. "You rely on this job to live. If we ruin your career, you will have nothing left. No job, no reputation, no one will dare to hire you. We want to see if you can still be so arrogant and unyielding then." They had completely abandoned reason and morality. Unable to defeat Natalie in public opinion, they chose the most primitive and despicable way, using violence of disturbance to force her submission. On the phone still lying on the bed, Jason's hoarse scream continued to come through. "Do it. Mom and Dad, go to her company. Ruin her job. Force her to delete the post and hand over the house. I'd rather have her die than let her destroy our family." The voices of her so-called family members intertwined, cold and vicious, piercing the warm sunset light and revealing their ugliest humanity. Natalie stood by the balcony railing, the evening wind brushing her hair, her expression calm and unwavering. In her past life, this was the final blow that crushed her. Faced with family disturbances at her workplace, fearful of losing her hard-won career, afraid of being judged and excluded by colleagues and leaders, she had knelt down and begged for mercy, deleted all evidence, apologized publicly, and obediently handed over her school district apartment to Jason. That compromise was the beginning of her complete collapse. After that, her family became more unscrupulous in exploiting her, until they finally drained her life completely. But this life, she would never repeat the same mistake. "You can go." Natalie's tone was flat, without the slightest trace of fear. "I have already reported the whole story and sorted out all evidence to my company's leadership and HR department in advance. All the chat records, transfer bills, threat recordings, and online slander content have been fully submitted and archived. My company has always advocated zero tolerance for workplace harassment and family violence disguised as family affairs. They know I am the victim in this whole incident. If you insist on going to make trouble, you will only disturb public order, affect normal office operations, and leave illegal disturbance records. The one who will lose their reputation and suffer legal consequences will be you, not me." Mr. and Mrs. Carter froze on the spot. Their faces stunned and disbelieving, they had never expected that Natalie would be so thorough and decisive. She had not only fought back online but also prepared all backup plans in advance, blocking their last path of retaliation. You planned all of this long ago? Mrs. Carter trembled, her voice full of horror. Since the day I was reborn. Natalie nodded slightly, her eyes clear and cold. I know exactly how greedy and crazy you can be. I have been guarding against your retaliation from the very beginning. Before the couple could recover from the shock, Natalie's phone popped up with a new official notification from the local police station. She held up her phone casually, letting them see the content clearly. I have filed a police report for long-term family harassment, property extortion, and online defamation. The police have accepted the case and will initiate an official investigation. Every threat you made today, every slander you spread online, every request to rob my private property is valid legal evidence. Once the case is confirmed, you will not only bear civil liability, but also leave permanent bad records. This sentence completely crushed the Carter couple's last line of defense. They were ordinary people who valued face and reputation more than anything. A police case record was a lifelong stain they could never erase. A shame that would affect their old age and their grandson's future. Mrs. Carter's legs went weak, and she slumped directly onto the floor, her previous ferocity completely gone, replaced by endless panic and despair. No? You can't do this to us? We are your parents. Parents who have never treated me as a daughter are no different from strangers to me. Natalie's voice was cold and firm. Without any softening, you gave me life. But you have squeezed me for 32 years. Repaid my dedication with betrayal, and traded my life for your son's comfort. The kindness of childbirth has long been offset by your endless exploitation and harm. Mr. Carter stared at her in a daze, suddenly feeling that the daughter in front of him was completely unfamiliar. The docile, obedient, and sacrificing little girl he had controlled for decades was truly gone forever. The night fell quietly over Santa Fe, and the bright starlight spilled over the window. Clean and vast, defeated and desperate, Mr. and Mrs. Carter had completely lost their arrogance and prejudice. They no longer dared to threaten, no longer dared to accuse, only knelt weakly on the floor, begging Natalie's forgiveness with trembling voices. Natalie, we know we were wrong. We really know we were wrong. Mrs. Carter cried hoarsely, her face covered in tears and dust, completely without the dignity of a mother. We won't go to your company to make trouble, we won't ask for your house anymore, we will delete all online posts. Please withdraw the police report, don't let us leave a criminal record. Mr. Carter also lowered his proud head, his voice old and exhausted. Daughter, give us a chance. We will treat you well in the future, we will no longer favor your brother, we will be fair to you. Just don't cut off your family ties with us. They finally learned to humble themselves, but their apology was still never for the pain they had inflicted on Natalie. They were only afraid of punishment, afraid of losing face, afraid of bearing legal consequences. Natalie stood in the bright starlight, her heart completely peaceful, without hatred, without grievance. Only thorough relief. She had waited 32 years for this fairness, suffered a lifetime of pain for this family, and died once in despair. Today, she finally saw their defeat and humility. But she no longer felt any joy or redemption. Some hurts can never be repaired. Some relationships can never be restored. I can withdraw the report on the premise that you stop all harassment and slander immediately. Natalie spoke slowly, her tone calm and decisive. But don't misunderstand. This is not forgiveness. This is my final mercy, a complete end to our past entanglements. From today on, I will completely cut off all economic and emotional ties with the Carter family. She took out a pre-edited severance statement and read it clearly word by word. All the property, savings, and expenses I have paid for the family in the past 32 years are counted as repayment for your upbringing. From this moment on, I no longer owe anyone in this family anything. I will not bear any of Jason's living expenses, mortgage, or child tuition anymore. I will not respond to any moral kidnapping, family mediation, or unreasonable demands. In the future, your old age, Jason's marriage, Owen's future, and all trivial family matters have nothing to do with me. We are no longer family, only unrelated strangers. Mr. and Mrs. Carter's bodies trembled violently. Their faces ashen and lifeless. They wanted to argue, wanted to continue begging, but they had no qualifications and no courage. All their sins were solid evidence, and all their greed was exposed to the public. They had long lost the right to ask for anything from Natalie. On the phone, Jason's noisy screaming finally fell silent completely. He seemed to realize that he had truly lost everything. His unlimited financial support, his sister's endless dedication, and his family's one and only cash cow. But it was too late. Natalie picked up her phone and pressed the end call button firmly, blocking all calls and messages from the Carter family forever. She then opened the social platform and updated her final post, concise and powerful. Drawing a perfect full stop to all the turmoil. 32 years of dedication, today ends. All grievances are cleared, all ties are severed. From now on, I live only for myself. After posting, she turned off the comment section, no longer paying attention to public opinion. No longer caring about others' discussions, the noisy world. The greedy family, the heavy past, all of it was left behind. The next day, Natalie sent her parents return flight tickets as scheduled. Watching them leave the resort dejectedly and helplessly, they no longer dared to look at her, no longer dared to speak. Only left with endless regret and despair. After they left, Natalie walked alone to the desert hillside of Santa Fe. The wind was gentle. The starry sky was vast, and the sun shone warmly on her body. No more moral kidnapping, no more endless sacrifice. No more cold despair of dying alone. She stretched her body freely, feeling the long-lost freedom and ease. Her past life was a tragedy of being drained and abandoned. This life, she rewrote everything with her own hands. She kept her career, her property, her dignity, and most importantly, she kept herself. From today on, Natalie Carter belongs only to herself.